When performing due diligence, intelligence, even fraud or corruption investigations involving businesses, there are a few low-cost or even free tools for us to use to obtain results for further analysis, like OpenCorporates and Multigo. This is going to be a great video. Let's do it. Welcome to the Cyber Institute's show, and here we help you develop and enhance your online intelligence and investigation skills. I'm your host, Andrew Fordred, and I hope you're having a great day, and thank you for joining us. It's really good that you could make it and take the time to watch our video. I also want to let you know that we're going to give you something today, and that's a complete guide of everything that we cover in this video, so you don't need to make notes, you don't have to write anything down. If there's any confusion along the way, be rest assured there's a complete guide for you. You can follow along using it with the video, and preferably as well use it after the video to test your own skills, get the results that you're looking for, and add some real enhancement to your own investigation and intelligence collection skills. In this video, we're going to use Paul Roux. He's a former programmer, former criminal cartel boss, and informant to the US Drug Enforcement Agency. He created many years ago an encryption program called E4M, which was an open source disk encryption software program for Microsoft Windows, and it has sometimes been credited to the open source TrueCrypt, but Roux denies that he was ever part of that process. Anyway, in September 2012, he was arrested and taken back to the United States. He was sentenced in June 2020 to 25 years in jail. There's an excellent two-part video series produced by CNA Productions. The link is in the guide. You can just follow that. It's really worthwhile watching that. It gives you so much context, and also for you to practice your own open source intelligence skills, you can use the scenario sketched in the videos to use it for that purpose. Okay, so for the purpose of today's lesson, we will make use of OpenCorporates data to discover and obtain additional information about Roux's companies. For today's discussion, we're going to go through three steps or three processes to obtain this information, and these are OpenCorporates web-based search engine, which is just a normal website, and we follow through and obtain the data from there. We're going to have a look at the OpenCorporates API, and then we're going to be searching for OpenCorporates data using Multigo. Even if you are new to this or have not used Multigo or OpenCorporates before, you're encouraged to attempt these processes in your own time, and as I've mentioned, you've got the guide with you to help you in that. Following these steps will certainly provide you with other options to conduct investigations or relating to maybe your current position where you may be, and it broadens your experience. Or if you're in an unrelated sector, you may be considering a career change or career path, particularly at the time of this pandemic. Some of us have been put out of work, and there may be other options for us. So you're considering intelligence gathering, a professional intelligence field, due diligence, fraud investigation fields, for example. And this could provide you with additional focus points for that. Okay, briefly, what is OpenCorporates and Multigo? Okay, let's get rid of Paul here. And this is OpenCorporates' main website. It's a website which provides us with company information, containing the information about the companies, the directors. This data can be used for corruption investigations, for any other criminal acts, due diligence. It is the largest open database of companies in the world. And OpenCorporates themselves has made the commitment to allow this open access to high quality information, and it's drawn from official company registrars which can be trusted and assessed, that we can use this information and data to perform analysis and integrate into any other form of investigation or research. And we're going to cover today, as I've mentioned before in this training session, what is known as the Application Programming Interface, commonly known as the API. Don't worry if this sounds technical and if this is the first time you're using an API. We're going to walk you through the process, and I can promise you it is not difficult. It's just a case of applying what we learn to use for this purpose. The other thing I would like to encourage you to do is read the Investigator's Handbook, a guide to using OpenCorporates. The link for that is in the guide, which is packed with useful information to enable you to obtain improved results using the data, and also has a number of example investigations for your inspiration. And now getting to Multigo. This is their main website. It is an open source graphical link analysis tool for gathering and connecting information for investigation tasks. One of the many great benefits of Multigo is you can use it to search the internet from directly within the tool, the same way as you would use a search engine such as Google or Bing, by using what is commonly known as transforms. Many other visualization software programs don't do this. For this training session, we will take it to another level by utilizing the OpenCorporates API to import data into a graph for further analysis. For today's lesson, we're going to simulate this investigation. And typically, when starting a new investigation, one of the techniques that I like doing is doing a very basic reconnaissance on my subject person or company, and in this case Paul Roux. I'm going to do what is known as a Google Doc. So we put Paul Roux in quotation marks, and Roux is a very common surname, particularly in South Africa and France. So we need to specify one other thing to tell Google to go and find the right person for us, that we don't end up with a ton of people with the surname Roux. And as you'll see, quite a few of them also have the name Paul. And so we'll put in their drugs, and this should narrow it down considerably. There we go. We've got a Paul Roux Wikipedia page, and over here it tells us Paul Calder Roux, born in 1972, and it gives us the introduction information that I read out to you earlier. We're on the right track. So we need to know this to do our searches. We type in Paul Roux, and what is important here now is, and don't forget this, is we must deselect companies and select offices, because otherwise we're going to get very bad results back. And we just press the search, and there we go. And then we've got a page back about him, and that's the person we're looking for, Paul Calder Roux, because above here we've got a Graham Paul, we've got a Jean-Paul Roux. Here we've just got Paul Roux. This often happens with these type of searches. So we're going to have to investigate these. These obviously we can just leave out. Those are not our subject persons. So we just want to go with those of the Paul Calder Roux for now. So what we do is, let's take his first company and we open that up. And this is a UK based company, SSD Sales UK Limited. We also see that it has been dissolved over here. And then if this was a real investigation, what is particularly important to us here is the people listed below. But just for today's purposes, I need to make this disclaimer. I do not know if these people were implicated in anything that Paul did. So really, this is just for illustration purposes, and the scenario is hypothetically, if this was a real investigation, this could start building our network of people for us and their association to subject persons of that particular case. If we take Paul Calder Roux, because we want to select some more information about him, and also, sorry, before I go that way, some returns or results that come back in OpenCorporates also gives us other information, such as filings with the registry, which could be important to us as well. The other important thing to point out is that OpenCorporates gives us the source of the information, which is great, because if you need to preserve this information for an investigation, then especially anything that even vaguely looks as though it's going to go to court, you need to provide the source information. So back to Paul Calder-LaRue, we want to know some more information about him. And what I'm illustrating to you here now, because we're not logged in, OpenCorporates doesn't give us all the information. And here we have, sorry, you need to be logged in for this. So let's stop for a moment at this point, because what I want to add in here, this may be a good time to go and sign up for an account with OpenCorporates. When we use the API, we're going to need an account in any event. So follow the link in the guide, go and sign up for an account. And while you're doing that, I am going to log into my account, because I wanted you to see that this is what happens when we're not logged in. Okay, so now I'm logged in and we can see that the address information is visible. And when doing investigations, address information can be incredibly important to us. So we would need to have that information. It tells us, yes, we've done the reconnaissance on him previously. We saw the Wikipedia page, but had you not known much about him, it gives us his occupation as a programmer. And here's the important thing. His nationality is an Australian. Okay, so let's assume for a moment we don't know anything much about him, and we do know, for example, that he was born in Zimbabwe. He lived in South Africa for a long time. Why does he have this listed as his nationality? Well, as we know now, Paul LaRue was married to an Australian woman, and through that he gained Australian citizenship. But what is important to us here is that why, or the question that has to be raised is, why did he use his Australian citizenship to register the business? So it's another line of investigation you've picked up that may be worthwhile following up. And so we can go through the rest of his companies. Here's Ajax Technologies Limited, also in the United Kingdom, and here's some more people listed over there. If we go back to our original search, and we now have a Paul LaRue of Bag Buddy Incorporated, California, United States. What we know today is we know that he lived in the United States for a while. Is this one of his companies? So again, you would have to go and investigate that. We bring up the company here, and it just gives us a Paul LaRue. We don't know whether it's the same person. So as I pointed out earlier, you've got to go to the source data and have a look if there's any other information that could help us there. Here we get the California Secretary of State. Here's the Bag Buddy. We'll open that up. Here we've got it. It tells us it's suspended. Still Paul LaRue. We don't know whether he had any association with Huntington Beach in California. And then there's some documents we could open. I haven't researched this at all. I don't know whether this is him or it isn't him. Doesn't look like it. But, you know, as you're working through this information, it doesn't really give us much more information in these documents. But if they were part of your investigation or counted towards your investigation, this is invaluable, because you can collect these PDFs and then include them in your case file. So you would need to explore these in any event to either include them in your investigation or to eliminate them. So things like a date of birth or a known street address or something like that. If it's a date of birth that doesn't correspond with his date of birth, then we can eliminate this information out of the investigation. Okay, so at this point, it brings us to the API, and as I mentioned to you earlier, you'll have to sign up to make use of the API address, but I'm going to take you through the steps of this. If you're totally new to this type of investigation, what you see in front of you is a website address. That's very straightforward. If we start looking at APIs, which are effectively, an API can be considered a search string. So here we have the OpenCorporates example, which is https://api.opencorporates. The www has been replaced with API. All right. So most websites that do have API addresses, that's what you will see in the string. So here is the full API. So we've got https, the api.opencorporates. Now, again, most APIs work in a very, very similar way. So the next sort of part of the string is the version. That will be the version of the API, and in this case, 0.4 that OpenCorporates has. The next part of the string is companies. Now this will change. It could be anything. This is an endpoint, what we describe as an endpoint. And an API address or search string can consist of one endpoint. It can consist of two, maybe three, maybe even more, depending really what it's trying to achieve or what results it's trying to get. So in this case, it looks at companies. OpenCorporates has others for offices. It has for events. In other words, filings, date of establishment, so on and so forth. There's a whole bunch of them, and I'm going to touch on the API documentation shortly, which I encourage you to read through to get an understanding of this part of the API string. The next part in this case is search. This particular type of endpoint is not always the same one again, so we need to adapt our search string to get particular information. In this case, it's companies. Search question mark, where the question marks are, is whatever company name you're going to put in there. And then the next part is the API token or key. This is a fictitious one. It won't work, but that is what you will get when you either pay for an API token key or apply, and with OpenCorporates you can apply to them for a free key, provided that you've got a reasonable cause as to what you're going to use the data for. OpenCorporates likes to encourage that whatever you're going to use the data for, that it is for a public purpose. OpenCorporates also has a free API, which doesn't require a key. So if we have a look at it, it's api.opencorporates. It looks very familiar to what we've just been discussing. And then it's got the endpoint of companies. And then it's got GB. GB is a country code, and in this case it stands for Great Britain. And then the last section is a number, and this is a company number, the company registration. So this all, when we start to link it up together, the API will search a company in Great Britain with this company number. And that is how it'll be as straightforward as that. And it can be used for other things. The only problem at the moment currently, OpenCorporates has discontinued temporarily this particular API search string because it has been abused. So at the moment it doesn't work. Just keep on testing it. It might come alive again, or OpenCorporates will let us know when the free tool is available. Alright, before I explain any of this, I just want to first show you here I've run an API, but the point that I'm trying to illustrate is this blob of data that comes back. It's quite difficult to read. It looks a little bit disorganized. So what we need to do is add an extension to our browser, and in this case we're going to use the Chrome one. The same browser or the same extension is available for Firefox as well. And we go to the web store and we just type in JSON, because that is the return or the result of the formatting. It's called JSON. I'm not going to go into a lot more detail than that. And what we need is the JSON viewer, which we add to our browser over here, and we add to Chrome, and we allow it to be added. Just let that install, and there we go. Remove from Chrome. We go back here and we reload this, and I think we have a much cleaner and better result. It makes a lot more sense. Okay, what have I done here? I've run an API. Remember earlier we walked through it, so it's api.opencorporates, the version. I've done a company search, the question mark Q equals, and now this is what is particularly important, is if your company has multiple words in the name, you must put in the name or the word and use the plus symbol, and then it gets us to sales, plus symbol UK, plus symbol limited, and then our API token follows from that. And in this case, this is what it's brought back for us, and it gives us effectively the same information we saw earlier, but you can use this information now in other software packages or whatever you'd like to do, because if you follow this link as well, it should take you back to the original page source. Just dismiss that, and there you go. So that link takes you back to what we viewed a little bit earlier. But the point is, now you can download this information in a format that you need it in, and you can include it as part of your investigation. Okay, there's a lot we can do with the API. This is the reference documentation from OpenCorporates. Again, the link is in the guide. What is important to know is that access to all data is free for open data projects under the OpenCorporates open license. And there's also the have payment plans for non-open data projects. In other words, for your private business, if you're doing due diligence investigations for clients, so you would pay for access. And then the API can be used without API keys. That's what I illustrated to you earlier. Unfortunately, at the moment, it is not available. Once it is available, again, also understand, should you use it, there are usage limits on that. So just bear that all in mind. Hopefully by this stage, you're pretty keen to make use of the APIs and test them out. What I'm just quickly going to run through here is that APIs have what they call method calls or call methods. And here you can see the different ones. We started off with the companies ones. Company search, we've just done a company search. So all these will give you your basically your calls that have to be added to your API string. And what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you another one, which is, let's have a look at offices that are part of a business. Obviously in this case we're going to make use of Paul again. So I've constructed the search here. So what we've done is we've replaced companies with offices, still the same search, question mark Q equals, and then Paul plus Kelder plus LaRue, and so it goes on. And then the API token key, we hit enter, and there we go. We've now got results through the API, and this is a lot easier to look at because you have this sort of all in one spot. We did have it in the sort of web-based facility, but not with as much information. You've got to go through each one individually. Now you have them all in one area. So we got him here, and I'm going to come back to an important issue now. And it tells us that he is part of SSD sales, which we knew. We can go down. He's part of Ajax Technology. We go down to some more. Rainbow Force, it's a Spanish word, in Brazil, and so on. So it gives us a lot more information right here, right in front of us, saving us to go through each page individually. We could click on these links and it'll take us back to what we saw earlier. I think you're getting an idea of the API. I think it's very useful to use, but where its real power comes in is when we start using it in other tools, and I'm now going to show you how we work with the API key in Multigo. As promised, we're in the last step of this lesson, and we're going to make use of Multigo using the OpenCorporates API. And if you've never used Multigo before, if you follow our training platform, we've got a free course on Casefile, which is the little brother of the fully fledged Multigo. And using that course will show you how to install it. Multigo's also got a lot of guidelines on their website, so you won't be on your own. But if you have any questions, just let us know. We'll help you and walk you through the process. Very briefly, this is not a full Multigo lesson. It's just really to show you how to make use of the OpenCorporates part of it. And if you go down, these are all these little blocks of names, case file, entities, alias, DB, attack, MSRP, blockchain, etc., etc. There's a whole bunch of them. You can have a look. These are all called transforms. So each one has a different purpose. It searches different information. And in this case, we want to go down to OpenCorporates over here, and we install it. And whether you're using the paid version of Multigo, the trial version, the free version, it works on all of them. And this is something that I'm just making you aware of, because not all transforms. I have a paid version of Multigo, so I have access to all the transforms. If you're using the free community version, you'll only get access to the free transform modules, and in this case you would get the OpenCorporates one. So let's open what we call a new graph. There we go, and allow that to load up. And I'm going to select the phrase entity. Everything in Multigo, all these little items, companies, Bitcoin addresses, these are called entities. And so I've selected the phrase entity. You can do all sorts of things with the phrase entity. It's very much similar as to using a search engine. And again, I'm going to do the same thing as we did earlier. We're going to type in Paul Roux in quotation marks and drugs again in quotation marks. I'm just going to leave this at 50 up the top here, number of results. What I'm changing here is how many results Multigo can bring back for you. I'm just leaving it at 50. I don't want to overwhelm this. You can go up to 10,000 if there are 10,000 results available. And we right click on this, and this will open up. Let's go back. There we go. And this will open up the list of different transforms that we saw earlier. So from within inside the tool, you can open them up, and if you expand on them, it will give you the full list. Each one, you can run them all together if you wanted to. It's not always a great situation, or you can run them individually, which we're going to do. And in this case, we're just going to run it exactly the same as what we did in Google. In this case, Multigo makes use of Bing, and we just let it run. So it goes out, takes exactly that same Dorking information, and comes back to us. And here it's listed 50 websites that he's been mentioned in, and we can just explode those out. And there you go. Those are all the different websites with some sort of results, and you could then individually go through them. It's very easy actually. This one's the New York Times. If we go down here, it's got an article about, it's actually, in this case, it's the book review that was written about Paul Roux. Okay, enough of that. You get the idea, and then you could use these different results to start pivoting off into other information. So you're not only using the OpenCorporates information, you're using the general internet, and it gives you the reconnaissance that you may require in that case. So going back to the phrase, we just take out drugs, because otherwise we're going to get some funny results, and we leave it. We just also take out the quotation marks. Here we go, and hit enter. You can either, if it's part of your investigation, generally speaking, you would leave your results there. I'm just going to delete it for now, that we get an idea as to what's going on here. And again, we right click, we go back to our transform list, and over here is OpenCorporates. We just open it up. If we have a look under all transforms, it's got search companies and search offices. So what it's doing, what we were doing previously with both the normal search as well as the API search, we were going through a two-step process. You were searching companies for Paul Roux, and then we did a reverse director search for him, his own name in the capacity as a director against those companies. Multigo is going to do the whole lot for you in one shot. So we just go all of them. It then opens up this input list. Now here, if you want to refine your search, you can put in a jurisdiction code, incorporation date. You can really get down to some interesting areas that really refines your search, because you may get too many results. But I'm going to just leave it blank for this illustration, and we just leave it because it's got our API key in there, and that's what's important to us. And we just hit run and allow that to go out onto the internet and get our results for us. And there we go. We've got a whole lot of Paul Roux. Remember earlier we had a Jean-Pierre Paul Roux. We had I think a Graham. There we go, Graham Paul Roux. That these results we don't really want. He has a Paul W. Roux. So we're just going to, I'm not going to worry about those too much. We could have put in Calder. In fact, let's just do that. Let's just do this thing properly. Let's just put in here Paul Calder Roux to eliminate a whole bunch of results that we don't want. So we do the same. We just do all the searches and we hit run. And there we go. We just want those results for now. There's the Brazilian company, and here's the two British companies. And we want to know what companies these are associated to. You can get company, get details, search up. I'm just, for this process, I'm just going to select all. And then we get a bunch of results back. There we go. And the one thing I just want to make clear here, or point out to you, the nice thing about the OpenCorporates search in Multigo, once you've searched everything, remember we went all, it puts this blue dot in there. And that's really convenient, because that means you've done that. There's nothing more to be achieved via OpenCorporates, that is. If you want to go and do other searches against other, or use different transforms, that's fine. You can do that. But you've exhausted the information accessibility or availability from actual from OpenCorporates. So we don't need to do those again. What I want to do now, remember we said earlier the other people associated with businesses. So we want to just select the companies, select the company entities, and we're now going to search on those. And again, I'm just going to go all. We might get a few duplicates now. Company type, we can just ignore that for now and just go run. And there we go. We've got some really interesting information. This graph, this result graph, is also in your guide if you want to have a look at it and take a deeper and longer time to analyze it. And here, for instance, Ajax Technology, it will refer back to similar named companies. There's one in China. That may not be what we're looking for, but this is where your pivoting comes in, and your other information gathering will come in your analysis. Remember those people that we mentioned earlier. This could be the start of your network in that sort of analysis by association, where these people associated with him, and there might be a few others. Not really. Yes, here's a couple. Here's another one. So that's where you would start to, who is this person? It's part of the Brazilian company. Was this an associate of his, or was it just purely an administrator of the business? I think you get the idea. The one thing that I must emphasize is Multigo returns information incredibly quickly. So Multigo effectively it's gone and got the same information for us as we obtained earlier, but this time it's visualized. It's much easier to read and analyze, and easier for us to work with. The great thing as well is, if you were hypothetically again building a network and needing to identify these people, this gives you the pivot points right in front of you. They're easy to view, and you can build up the association. And Multigo takes it further. I mean, you're not only doing open corporate searches now, you can go out onto the general internet and find out who is this person. You can go and search him there. Domain, we don't know anything about this person. We can just have a look what sort of results come back. I'm just showing you how much further you can pivot off there. So there's 50 websites relating to this person. There's a LinkedIn site, which is always a great start to any investigation, and this can be useful. Great. So in conclusion, I think OpenCorporates is a really good option for due diligence, intelligence, fraud or corruption investigations, research, that type of research involving companies, and then with its API integration. We've seen how we can work with that data and really extract it for the maximum benefit. There are other ways of doing this. We can make use of things such as Python, write scripts to extract data and move it around into other areas. We can also use curl. That can also be used. Maybe we'll do an investigation at a later stage showing these particular methods and processes. And from there, you could use these to put the information into CSVs or Excel spreadsheets if that's what you need to be able to get the maximum benefit out of it. But importantly, today we covered the web integration, how we can just go into the website, use the information as it is. Just what we covered today, you can already integrate into any form of investigation and it'll give you what you actually need. We've used the API integration, we kickstarted that process, and we can see how that data comes back in its JSON, in its raw format, and then real working model of integrating the API into Multigo, another awesome tool for analysis. It brings back the data into a graph. It visualizes the data. We did a very small scale. We did one company, one person, but by the end of it, you already saw there's a sizable network, even though it was a hypothetical scenario. But it just shows you. And then if you're dealing with a lot of companies and a lot of people that are associated with particular individuals, Multigo pulls it all together for you, provided by OpenCorporates data. I have a question for you. What other method, technique, software do you think can improve on this process or helps us to better our investigations? Or most importantly, what works for you? What do you think is your method or technique that works for you? That maybe we can share with the greater community and discuss it, go into a lot more detail about it. Maybe it's something else we can research and work out. Also, let us know what other content you'd like to see us record. What is it that might be a bit of a pain for you, that you're struggling with, whether it's intelligence gathering, investigations, anything related to cyber. Let us know what you would like to see. What content can we make for you? I hope you've enjoyed today. I hope it's added some value to you. Stay safe. Most importantly, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you again.